If you compare Dubai to London, it is dirt cheap. Dubai, compared to Dubai to New York, it's dirt cheap. You know,
Yeah.
California, it's so cheap still. From the sheer investment level into Dubai and the UAE, there has to be growth. There can't not be.
So welcome everybody to another episode of the J2 Hub podcast. And today you probably see I'm in a different studio. I'm often in a studio down in Business Bay, but we're in our own studio today down on Shakeside Road. And I'm quite excited. I'm joined by a chap called Charlie from the UK who's been in property for a long, long time now. And I am very inquisitive on seeing what's going on in the UK. Obviously, I've been following the news, but I want to hear it from this man himself because he's boots on the ground, so to say. So, Charlie, look, let's kick off straight away. First of all, just give my listeners a quick intro on who you are and what you do.
Well, the quickest way to say that is I was a very sad 7-year-old who wanted to be financially free. And I established property was the route for that. So, long story short, I started my journey in property probably at 18. I bought my first property literally at 18. I started the process before being
Okay.
18. And then I just went on to build a multi-million-pound portfolio by the time I was 21. Fast forward now, I'm a little bit older than 21 now. So fast forward to today, I buy properties all the time. I buy businesses, I scale businesses, I sit on the board of some large companies.
Mm-hmm.
And charity, the hospice. I'm sure you've heard of the hospice. I'm on the board of the hospice, so
I
quite
have, yeah.
close to my heart. Quite close to my heart that. And then I mentor people, I advise. So yeah, I do a bit of everything now. But it all started in property. Property was really all I did for a long period of time.
Good stuff. So, Charlie, look, let me ask you a question right now with what's going on in the UK. I've been in well, I'm 43 now. I've been in property since I was 22. So,
Mm.
and it's always served me well.
Yeah.
During that time, again, we've built a multi-million-pound portfolio ourselves in London, me and my wife. But now we're based out in Dubai, and the way I see property in the UK is in a totally different light now. So, for someone who's always buying property like yourself, I mean, I stopped buying last year, and I've got no intention of buying anything else just yet. Tell me, what is the state of affairs down there at the moment? Because I have obviously running a brokerage here and being in developments out here in Dubai myself. I speak to people from the UK all the time, and a lot of them are reassessing their portfolios and they're investing in other parts of the world now. So I'd like to hear from you on what you think is going on, and is it going to
Yeah.
get better anytime soon?
So I'm a glass half full guy. I
Mm-hmm.
think the problem we've got in the UK, people like you and I, have been used to it when we used to have our cake and eat everything. We had super low interest rates. We just had everything on our plate. So the problem we've got in the UK is that we've got a lot of old school landlords slash investors who were used to, having everything. Fast again, like whereas today I look at it's not all that bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy with most of the changes. The interest rates are higher, but then they're where they should be, to be fair, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like if you ask me to borrow some money and you're going to give me 1%, I'd say get lost. Um, so they're actually where they should be anyway. It's just we weren't used to it. So what I'm seeing in the UK in terms of state of affairs is panic always happens when there's change of governments and things like that. So people tend to panic. But yes, there's a lot of more experienced landlords and investors who are leaving the market and going into other ventures, whether that be investing into Dubai or different types of assets. But they
Mm-hmm.
are being replaced by new investors who aren't, they're accepting that, yeah, okay, I'm not going to have as big a piece of the cake as such, but I'm still going to have a good investment. If you look at the growth rates, they're still going to have a good return on investment over the course of time, depending on where you're investing. If you're investing in London, then I don't know, you only do that so you can say you own something in London. But if so, I actually, like I said, I'm always half full, but definitely there's a lot of scaremongering going on. There's a lot of people that don't really understand the changes, and you know what mainstream media. Look, I miss Dubai massively. Um, Mainstream media here likes to scare everyone. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the
Mm-hmm.
amount of fake news that I see. So, look, is it as good as it was? No. Is it still a very good asset to purchase? 100%. So it just depends what you're comparing to. That's the way I look at it. So, and it's about that longer term strategy. I think again, back in 2008, we could make real quick money, real quick. Whereas today, you've got to be thinking a little bit longer term. Mortgage companies want to know what stocks you're wearing. Surveyors want to protect themselves from being sued. Solicitors the same. So you just got to think, actually, if I'm going to invest in this property, I've got to pretend I'm not going to see anything from it for 5 years. Now you will, but you've got to act as if you're not, and that's how I look at it. So yeah, it's a difficult period because people just don't really understand what's going on because there's no real news going
Mm.
around anywhere other than property experts.
Yeah.
That's about it.
But look, I mean, I'm speaking to people that have got maybe 3, 4, up to 500 units plus, and they've been
Yeah,
landlords, they've been investors for a long, long time. And these guys are kind of talking, about completely exiting, and it's the first time
yeah,
they've ever thought like this for a long, long time. So yeah, I understand your
yeah,
points on when you say, yeah, you might not make anything for the first 5 years, and yeah, in the long term, I've been in it long enough to see a few shit storms, and I've seen it go back up, seen it go down, all of that, go round and
mm,
round in circles. But even me, for the first time, I'm looking at certain things. I'm looking at this renters reform and the potential of rent caps coming in, and tenants being able to leave mid-flow tenancies, and having, for the first time, having to take tenants to court in 20 years last year was a big thing for me. And I'm thinking, is this really going to get better? Is it going to get better in our lifetime? And I don't know if I can confidently say yes.
yeah. Like, obviously, I don't have that crystal ball. I'm active in it obviously every day,
Yeah.
and the Dubai market to be fair. But the the renters reform, again, there's a lot of scaring going on about that. But I look at it in a completely different way. Do your job properly when you're renting
Mm.
a property and do your due diligence. Don't cut corners. Because when most landlords go wrong is they just cut a corner. Because I had one walk into my building here. I've got a team obviously that look after people, and he rented to someone who was a worker, works for a government-owned company locally here, and he just approached him when he saw he was at his house. Said, "Oh, you're going to rent this?" And he's like, "Yeah." Obviously, he rented it to the guy, no due diligence, just knew he worked for this government-run company, and the tenant's a nightmare. If you're going to cut
Mm.
corners, you're going to have problems. If you do the job properly, then to be honest, the supply and demand is so outweighed that the demand will always be there. I think the concern I have is really there's no oh God, I'm really going to put myself out there by saying this, but there's no one in government that actually really understand what they're doing with the property sector. And I might be unfair because there could be people that I don't know of that are. So I don't want to get myself in trouble there. But we've got people making decisions that really don't understand the bottom to the top. They only know a section of it, and they don't really understand what the problem is. Part of the problem for tenants is the rent increases. Why did the rent increases go so fast? Because of the government banning tenant fees. What do
Mm.
agents do? Oh, I need to make my money back. We charge a landlord. Landlord, put your rent up. It just there's just no common sense of how the decisions are made, and even the renters reform. What that's going to do is push a lot of landlords, like you said, ones who have been in the game for a very long time, have made a lot of money. They're like, hey, do you know what? I can't bother with all this stuff anymore. I'm out. They're going to
Mm.
exit the market. Now, you mentioned about someone who might have 3, 4, 500 units. They exit the market. There could be hundreds of properties coming away from the market to be able to rent. What happens then? Rents go up because of demand. So this is what I mean. It's just it's non-logical thinking. So I try and look at it from both sides. I'm an investor and I invest for people. Um, and I, I look at that and say, well, that's a good opportunity from a demand perspective. Yes, there's more complications. Yes, it's a pain in the backside. I normally can't be bothered to buy more properties, but then obviously I get offered good prices all the time, so I have to buy them. It's one of those. I just sort of like, okay, I'll take it. But I just think it's quite a frustrating space to be in. And
Yeah.
knowing the Dubai market so well, for example, and not just the Dubai market, a couple of other markets, it's so frustrating that the government can't just get their heads knocked together and just think, why can't we make this 100-plus-year-old property transactional system up to date, modernize it, and simplify it, and use a bit of
Mm.
common sense? So I'm not saying the Dubai market's perfect; it isn't, but the logic is far better. and that's the bit that's frustrating for me in
Yeah,
today's
yeah,
market.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that point. I mean, look, a couple of things you hit on there. You said that, if a landlord's doing their job properly, or a property investor's doing their job properly, they shouldn't really have an issue with a tenant. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I had a tenant who was with me for 3 years. They moved into a beautiful house in London, in the East End of London. The renovation cost probably around 140 grand on it. She was great the first year, great the second year. Third year, when she started realizing the kind of things she could get away with, she started to default. And this is somebody who came properly vetted, and she was vetted right to the stage of, we ask for credit reports. We're making sure your
Mm,
credit scores a certain level before we're giving you a tenancy. And she was vetted left, right, and center. But I feel she took the piss because she knew she could, based on certain situations that she knows she can get away with. Being a mother of two children, she started faking all of this stuff that her husband
mm.
had left her. She even managed to get an environmental order against us for the property.
That's
And when the council came round and had a look, the council was like, hold on a second. The same woman who came round, she goes, ain't I the one who did your selective licensing? And I said, yeah, you are. She goes, I have no clue what this woman's talking about. So that case was thrown
yeah,
right out because the woman could clearly see that the house was great. And, even when it came to court, we lost probably a year's worth of rent, 6 or 7 grand taking her to court. And then we were lucky because we had to default all the rent. We said, the judge goes, look, if I give you a possession order now, are you happy to lose all
mm.
the rent? And for us, it was more important to get the property back. So
Get the
yeah,
property back.
we
Yeah,
were so we were happy to lose it. But on the same token, you think to yourself, this is somebody who came vetted, who is a solicitor, who had everything ticked
no,
and right, and she's just absolutely taken the piss. And a
yeah.
solicitor at that.
The, the issue is like obviously we I think my company looks after hundreds of properties a month. Like we manage hundreds. Obviously, I own a lot. So we've done thousands and thousands of rentals. And to be honest, there is bad eggs, but there's probably a handful, maybe a dozen, absolute max in all those thousands. So don't get me wrong, these things happen. I had a very similar scenario about 7 years, in 2018, 17, with a tenant. They were absolutely fine for a few years.
Mhm.
Somehow they got addicted to drugs. This was a young family as well, which is quite sad actually. The parents got addicted to all sorts of drugs, and they just turned to absolute nightmares. And I was the same. I actually got all their rent back because their parents were that embarrassed. Their parents were quite well known in the area I was, and they were that embarrassed by the way they acted. They actually did pay me all the rent, but the hassle and the stress and the time and the cost of court and blah blah blah. Yeah, look, I've had that. Don't get me wrong, but it does come back to what I said. If we look at the whole scheme of things, I see more bad landlords than I do tenants over the
Mm,
course of
mm.
years. And that sounds harsh, but it's true. If you think we've been personally, obviously, I've been in the industry since investing since about 2007. But as a company, we've been doing it for 13, 14 years, and yeah, I've seen more bad landlords, and I don't want to you know, alienate myself. But I see more bad landlords and tenants in that course of time. But don't get me wrong, a lot of private landlords that come to us have a lot of issues because they just did. And like I said, you can do all the job properly, like I did with my tenants, and I still got an issue. But that's one. That's only really one terrible experience for me
Yeah,
that I've
yeah.
had in that time. So when I weigh up, by the age of 21, I could go and live in Madagascar and not work a day of my life. So,
Mm,
so property, same for you. Property has given us a lot. So we have, like anything in life, it's sorry for the language, but it's a shitstorm. And
mm.
sometimes there's stuff that's going to come in so good. But like I said, maybe I'm a positive, too positive, who knows? But I always look at things like, okay, yeah, it's not great, but you know what? Property gives us a lot.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, I'm absolutely thankful to it. Don't get me wrong.
Mm,
Like you said, it's given you absolute freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do. And I also agree with you. There are a lot of shit landlords out there, and then they wonder
mm,
why they've got issues. You just have to look at the properties, and I feel some of those are probably accidental landlords that bought very very
yeah,
cheap, have done no bloody maintenance. They don't understand that a tenant is actually a client. They look at them
yeah,
as more of a problem. So I agree with you on those senses, but I do feel that if, let's say, for example, someone like yourself with your own portfolio, if you had a defaulting tenant, say every 3 months,
Mm,
a couple of tenants every 3 months, and you're in this rut where you're thinking, shit, I'm taking these guys to court all the time. And I can't really do anything about it. It's because they know how the system works and they know it's quite
yeah.
relaxed for them to get away with it. Does that then change your opinion, or do you still ride it through?
I think if it was that regular, then obviously I'd probably think, do you know what, stuff this, I'm out.
Mm.
Yeah, if it was that regular, it's just I know from the company, my company that looks after hundreds and hundreds of landlords, plus
Yeah.
me, plus my investors, plus my clients, it's very minimal. Like it does happen, but it's very minimal. So yeah, but oh God, don't get me wrong. If it was happening on the regular like that, then yeah, I'd be out. I'd be buying businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
businesses have their own. Businesses do have their own problem, you know. With you and I are real estate guys, so you know this is a. I call it a sexy asset. We can touch, we can feel it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've always got that. When I'm buying businesses, there's obviously far bigger risk because it's like you look at COVID. Some companies absolutely boomed because of COVID, and others went
Mhm.
bust. You know, so whereas the property, it's always here. It's
Yeah,
always
of course
here.
it is.
Yes, you
Yeah.
might not make as much as you could in other formats. You know, in certain company deals I've done, I've tripled money in 3 years. You know, you can't do that in property. Um, but but I still, maybe I'm just biased because of what it gave me. Um, but I'm always that committed. And obviously for me, that's why I find it interesting learning about obviously being involved in the Dubai markets and other markets because I think diversification is one of the most important parts. So many people over the years, especially to the
Yeah.
UK market, I just want UK property. I want UK property. I want UK property. There's never been this sort of diversification thought process. It's just purely been like, I need UK. You know, if you think about the amount of people I've invested for all around the world over the years, they never even would talk about another country. Whereas I've tried
Mm.
educating, you
Mm.
know, let's diversify like you would in England. You have your expensive, you have your cheap. Let's look at Dubai. Let's look at, you know, Dubai's my more interested party at the moment, but you know, I do think it's important to diversify whatever you're doing, whether that's property or assets as a whole. You should never have all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. No, look, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I'm with you. Property for me is still one of my favorite asset classes, if I'm honest with you. Even with everything going on, it's still the one thing that I understand the best. And like you say, I always say to people that, look, if it goes down in price, at least I can go and give it a hug. I can go and see it. I can go and
Yeah,
touch it. You know, if I'm in the crypto space, I know when those guys their wallets have bottomed out or they've been shorted or
yeah.
whatnot. You know, it's been a massive emotional disaster for them because it's not something that they can see, physically touch, or go and kind of, console him because it doesn't
It's happened to me.
physically
I've had
exist.
a not a huge pot, but I've had a pot of money in the stocks and shares that just
Yeah,
gone, like bottomed out, gone, lost. Like I said, you know, with real estate, the physical asset is always there. You
yeah,
can't lose that unless you go bankrupt. You ain't gonna lose that physical asset. So yes, it might not always give you the best returns that you want compared to the olden days, but it's still there. But you know, yeah, I'm definitely biased from that front though. But I think anyone who's made money in property probably is always going to be biased
yeah.
because of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So look, Charlie, putting that aside now, tell me what is it generally? What's the vibe like in the UK at the moment? Is it really as gloomy as people make it out to be?
Yeah. It's, oh God, I'm definitely going to get myself in trouble on this one. Yeah, do you know what? I find it so depressing. Um, like, I, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm trying to be mindful what I say, but it's such a negative environment. It's really tough, really tough, and everyone wants to pull each other down. Everyone wants to sue someone. Everyone wants to moan about someone. And obviously, there's pockets of areas that aren't like that. But as a country, you feel it. So you know, I was in South Africa's not a good example actually. I was, you know, if we think, I was just there and I come back off the plane last week, and it's just like, God, you just come back into this like, whoa.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Um, and and I, you know, I'm a big fan of Dubai. I have some people who've never been to Dubai and say, oh, well, it's not that good. Well, you haven't been. The thing I do love about Dubai, Switzerland, certain other countries is the drive. And I'm not saying everyone wants to be a trillionaire or a billionaire or but it's such a positive environment in
Mm.
comparison.
Mm.
And that's the bit I struggle with. Where I work internationally a lot, I see how other countries are living and working, and by no means is anything perfect, but the atmosphere is distinctively different. And I think the problem is people that don't ever leave England can't see that anymore. And I think it's quite sad because, England's definitely one of the most powerful countries in the world, and has the ability to be something completely different. But it is definitely doom and gloom, 100%,
Yeah.
which is not nice.
I get bashed by people, and they always say to me, "Oh, James, you're so insulting to the UK." And I'm like, "Look, I'm not insulting to the UK. It genuinely hurts me the way I see the
Mm,
country going because I'm born and bred in the UK, and I get hate comments all the time, and people are like, James, well, you're not even British. I'm like, well, as far as I'm concerned, I was born in the country. You know, I am of Asian Indian ethnicity, but put that aside, I don't know any other thing other than the East Ends of London,
yeah,
and it saddens me to see the way it's going because every time I'm there, it's a bit like yourself. I come off of a Emirates flight and I'm at Heathrow. And to be fair, I was pretty impressed by Heathrow recently because the
yeah,
security was moving a lot quicker. But
yeah. It's
again,
actually good nowadays. Yeah,
I'm thinking, is that because less people are coming in? It was quite quick for me to get in and out. But other than that, the minute you step out, I smiled at someone. I said, you're right. And when I was back where I live, and she told me, piss off, you pervert. And it's like, what? Like,
I'm not even
I've,
surprised.
I've
Yeah,
grown up in these
it.
streets, like, what,
I
how'd you figure that one out?
I do think it's tough. Like I said, certain ones of my friends say, if you don't like England so much, why are you here? And actually, I probably wouldn't be if my son wasn't in England. So to be
Mm,
fair, I'd be probably where you are. But the thing is, I think it's just hard for people to see sometimes. And like I said, I don't want to alienate myself or get myself. I'd love for England to not be the way it is right now. I'd love that
mm,
because it's my home.
mm,
So I'd rather we're in a more positive environment. And obviously, it is about who you surround yourself with and things like that. That helps. But yeah, it's hard to avoid. Everyone wants to moan. Everything's negative. Media is just constantly looking for negative stories, and I think it's not a great. When I think of my son, if I could pick him up and take him to Dubai today, we'd be gone.
mm.
We'd be gone. He'd be going to
Sure,
school in Dubai. That's
sure.
that's for my opinion because and it's not because I prefer Dubai as a place. It's fake. It's not real. In terms of like the countryside, you can't replace the countryside, stuff like that. However, the environment, the drive, the ambition, the communication, the atmosphere, the morale, all of these things
Mm,
are just so positive. And I'm only comparing the two because we're in Dubai, and I spent a few months in Dubai last year, for example. I'm trying to move there,
sure.
and it is tough, and I think it's really hard. Like I said, where I do work away a lot, I'm constantly seeing the differences between other places in the UK, and I'm not sure it will be fixed in any immediate future.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
to be fair, I can't see that being fixed, but who knows?
We can only hope. We can only hope. And look, Charlie, being a father myself, one of the things that I see, I've got a son who's 8. I've got a son who's going to be 15 in a few days' time.
Wow.
And, it's just phenomenal watching these boys grow in this country
Mm,
or in this place,
yeah,
I'm looking at my eldest, for example, back home in the UK, it was cool to go and hang out and go to a nightclub, drink alcohol, drugs, experiment with this, where
yeah,
here, it seems like for you to be the cool guy, you've got to be very good at some kind of support. You've got to be very good in your education and you've got to be a
yep,
very likable person. And I'm thinking, how is this flipped so quickly? Like back
mm,
home, it'll be like, you know what? I'm
oh,
going to be mates with that guy because he's the flipping class clown and he makes everybody laugh. Here, the worst I've seen kids do together when they're out is maybe someone's got a vape pen. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
if in the grand scheme of things, someone's stolen a vape pen off their dad or their mum and bought it together and that's what they're experimenting with, I'm quite happy with that because when I
yeah,
see the way everything else is, like Saturday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, my 8-year-old can walk outside of the house, go off, and he's gone for hours. And that's how I remember childhood being. You're not physically
Yeah,
worried about where your kid
can't
is,
do
and you're
that now.
thinking, absolutely. I mean, you with a little boy yourself, could you imagine him just being out playing on his own?
No, not really. I mean, this is the thing. He absolutely loves Dubai, loves it.
Yeah,
I mean, as a child growing up, what is there not to love about somewhere like that? The things, obviously, I think this is where they're very clever. They created everything to support families because they understood if we want the hard hitters staying here, the families need to be happy.
yeah.
And it is amazing. Like when I go with my son, we tend to stay in Damac Hills too because
Oh,
I like
nice.
being
Yeah, yeah,
a little bit out of the
yeah,
way, and I love the facilities there. It's like a
yeah.
dream. It is like a
Mm,
dream. Could you imagine? In England, I think it probably costs around 20 grand a year to rent a 3-bedroom townhouse in Damac Hills too, right?
yeah,
Now
yeah.
you get a driveway, an ensuite, 2 bathrooms overall, and the
Mm.
facilities. You got the running tracks, you got the water lake, you got the floating cinema, the water park. If it's ever half the time they shut it.
I was just
The
about to say
gym,
that.
the gym, the fields. Just like that isn't possible in England. You can't have that, and if
Mm.
it was, you'd be paying probably 100 grand a year, not 20 grand
Yeah,
a year.
yeah,
So actually, this is why I look at the diversification and part of it, what's where and why. And I think if you've got that lifestyle where they've encouraged things to be included within communities, free, not technically free, but they are free as part of the communities. You encourage what you said about your 8-year-old going out. I could quite happily at Otis at 7, let him go at 6, 7, go and roam the Mac Hills too. Quite
yeah,
happily.
yeah, yeah,
Like just go and roam and do what you want, mate. Like come back for dinner. Like that's where I think the real shame is now. And then we go back into property. The average completion time from agreed sale to completion is around
mm,
4.5 to 5 months right now. It's
mm,
ludicrous. There is no reason for it to take that long. There is no reason other than every Tom, Dick, and Harry are covering their backsides because they don't want to be sued. And that is
yeah,
the only reason.
absolutely.
And that's what I mean. That just summarises it. In every walk of life now in England, we've got this situation that it's just a bit sad. I mean, I don't. Like I said, I do love the country, but I think I think the birth of my son was more of my driving my issues with the country. I think
Yeah,
before him, I just didn't really get phased too much. But obviously, he's 4 years old now, and I can definitely notice the difference in me since he's been born about like my frustration with the education system, with the people and the personalities and the mindset. The mindset's one of the best things about Dubai. Love
mm,
it. Everyone wants to help each other because they understand if I help you get to here, I'm probably going to be following you. I'm probably going to be going. That's what I mean. It's just such an amazing environment, and we don't, unfortunately, right now, have that in England.
there's a huge growth mindset here, and I say it to
Mm.
everybody all the time. Like I've been able to connect with some fantastic people. I'll give you an example. Me and my business partner, we had a golf lesson, and we were sitting in Damac Hills One in the clubhouse, and we bumped into Anthony Middleton, off the SAS.
Yeah, yeah.
We got chatting to him. We had a couple of beers with him, and before you know it, I've got him in my phone book, and I'm regularly messaging him, talking to him, and I'm thinking, would this have happened back in the UK? And I'm looking through my phone book, and some of the people that I am connected to now, I'm thinking, it's been so easy to connect to these people because, like you say, they realize there's a lot to go around here. And one thing I've
Hmm.
found is people are very receptive to sharing information with you. They want you to grow
Yeah.
because they know there's a lot. And when you come to Dubai, it don't matter if you think you're balling in the UK and you walk into Dubai, you actually realize, hold on a second, I'm fucking
uh,
poor. I'm shit
yeah,
poor
you
because
do.
there are levels and then there's levels, and then Dubai just introduces levels that are above levels, and you think, okay, if I ever needed any inspiration, discipline, or motivation to achieve something, I just need to look around at some of the hard hitters around here.
100%, and that's what I love. And I think like coming back to the education, obviously the education's so strong, and England, bar some of the big schools and colleges, the education's gone, and I look at that, and I've got a good friend actually flying from Dubai tomorrow. Got Craig David tickets, but they're flying from
Hey,
Dubai tomorrow. And they're born and bred in Dubai. They lived
yeah.
in England for about 3 years for university and stuff like that, and you know they said to me like, I can't understand why anyone would choose to live in England. Um,
Mm,
and there's a partner of a very big real estate firm in Dubai I know, and he's from England. He will not. He might step foot in England once, maybe a year, and he's like, I don't understand why people go back. He's like, oh, I don't get it. He's been in Dubai for 22 years now, so he's proper Dubai. But I said I don't want to just mean Dubai. There's other places that are prosperous and things like that. It's just, I just think, yeah, and I find myself really battling it with my son. Obviously, I'm here
mm,
because of my son. Um,
of course, I get that.
but
That's a big thing.
but it's on the flip side of that, I'm looking at it and thinking, I know what you're missing out on. I know, like
Mm,
factually know, and it's just a shame. But someone maybe might miraculously come into government and flip it all on its head. I don't know. um, but who maybe it can happen.
Charlie, let me ask you a question then. So, look, obviously we spoke about the UK now, and you quite clearly said that you would be here in a heartbeat if you could, but your
Mm,
circumstances are a little bit different at the moment. So, you mentioned briefly that you've got some interest here in Dubai. Let's flip it over to
yeah.
Dubai now. So, obviously, being mainly a UK property guy, what have you got going on in Dubai then?
So I was actually a partner at one of the big firms over there for a while. Um,
Okay,
so so yeah, I've done a lot in the Dubai space. Invested over there.
okay,
Um, only recently, personally, um, like recent
okay,
last couple of years personally. But invested for clients and things over there for years. And actually, for people who are listening from, I don't know how many UK listeners you do or don't have, or where your listener base is, but I don't know about you, but the way I describe the Dubai property market compared to the English property market is a little bit like a trader's market. It's so fast paced, um,
yep,
whereas the English market is, even if it should be fast, can't be fast. And I see it that way. So I think it's quite exciting. I think the issue with the Dubai market is there's a lot of investors who get told by Facebook and Instagram, oh, buy in
mm,
Dubai and you're
mm.
going to make X amount of new money before it's even built. And I've never heard so much nonsense in my life because, as you know,
Yes.
how long have you been? How long have you had your brokerage there now?
So I've been here 4 years, and we've had our own brokerage for 2 years. And you've
Yeah.
just
So
hit the nail on the head. It is a lot of
you
shit
know,
out here.
depending on what developer built that, completely depends on what your return on investment will be, and
Absolutely.
that's the difficulty with Dubai. I'm not going to name any developers, but for example, what people don't realise is if you get an Amar a launch, I can sell those out in minutes. They just go
Mm.
gone, just because it's Amar. there's, there's no other logic behind it. So yes, if you get a good development in a good location with Amar, then yes, you could probably move it back on before completion and make money. But I'm not going to name all the developers. But yeah, the issue definitely lies in Dubai. That yeah, it depends who's built it.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I find that's probably why I took so long to invest in Dubai. My auntie, for example, she bought a whole bunch of apartments and stuff in the Palm when it was originally built, and a, and a,
Oh,
and
wow.
a villa. So she bought a villa and a bunch of, I think she bought 7 apartments and a villa. And my godmother, she bought a couple when the Palm was originally being done. Hey, they're laughing now. They're
Yeah,
they're loving life.
absolutely.
But I definitely took a long while to put my own money into Dubai because of what I know about the developers and where, why, what's coming, so forth.
Mm.
I saw a lot of people that pump money into Dubai because they were told it's going to increase by X amount I saw even on Facebook yesterday saying about how it's going to grow by X percent by 2028. Well, who's making that up? I mean, who bloody knows? It's not an old enough market.
Mm.
It's still a very, very new market um, in terms of the history of property. So, but yeah, it can provide phenomenal return on investments. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
got to
look,
be the right developer.
you have hit the nail on the head there. There is a lot of rubbish out here, and I would say personally, 80% of all the brokers out here are not closing anything. They're just here for the sake of being here,
Mm,
and a lot of them are kind of just, you know, hitting and hoping. And there is a lot of false information out there, and that's the reason why I think we've done so well in a relatively small period of time, because I have catered all of our investments towards UK property guys, people that understand exactly what they're looking for. And I say the same thing to them. I say, there's so many variables that can make or break a deal here. Generally in the
hmm
UK, if you say to somebody, I'll buy something in Birmingham, they know that's a secure city, I'll probably do okay of it.
Yes.
Whereas here, you can go a couple of miles down the road, or you could be a little bit out from here, and it could be totally the wrong investment. And we
Yeah.
briefly touched on Town Square when you asked me where I live. And that, for me, we did a hell of a lot of research into the market. And for me, Town Square was always an area that was so undervalued compared to everywhere else. And people didn't
hmm
realize that it's a direct sister company of Emaar. So when you walk around there, it's got all the elements of Emaar. And we just decided,
Yep.
you know what, we're going to focus here because there was track data. I could pull up government reports and see where the market started, where it's going, where it's been. I could also offer my investors all of this solid information, and that's why we became it, we only focused there for 12 months last year, and we were one of the top brokerages that sold in Town Square. We got an award for it and
Oh well.
everything, and we were super proud of that because we thought actually we've delivered a product that says what it's going to do, and even our investors, they're kind of looking at it now thinking, oh shit, James, I bought for this much, and now they're selling for this much in a relatively short period of time. And still, when you look at it in comparable to the rest of the buy, it's still very undervalued, and it isn't anywhere
Yeah.
near where average prices are. So for me, it's a firm favorite. Not only do I live there, I invest there. We've got a couple of million in there now ourselves, and I love it. I love it because I know it
Look,
works. And why wouldn't I sell my investors or clients coming to me something that I've got my own money in?
that you've got your own money in. That's where I look at it. So obviously, for example, I'm a big fan of Creek Harbour, um, but
Yeah.
but that's got a little while to go. But then obviously, I know from one of the head people at Imar what's coming. So for me, I
Mm,
kept trying to get some investors who like just want downtown, just want this, just want Business Bay. I was like, hey, look, what you're going to pay per square meter in Creek Harbour, get it now. Do you know what I mean? Like, get it now
mm,
while the like Town Square. That you can get them now at the. This is the thing with Dubai, and I think that's why I love it. Like, it is new. It is, some of the developments are some of the shoddiest things I've ever seen. But everyone thinks of Dubai as this big bling. Yeah, on the face of it looks bling, but that bloody building's flawed. You know, like it looks good from the outside, but some of the early developments are just flawed. But I think that's why I love it. I think there's so much growth. There is so much. If you compare Dubai to London, it is dirt cheap. Dubai, compared Dubai to New York, it's dirt cheap.
yeah.
California, it's so cheap still. So there's got to be, from the sheer investment level into Dubai and the UAE, there has to be growth. There can't not be.
Mhm.
In theory, I could be completely wrong, but there has to be growth, right, for that level of investment, and like you said, growth mindset and all of that side. There has to be, and I think there's already on track for 148,000 millionaires moving to Dubai this year. Already, it's crazy.
Wow. Is that worldwide?
Yeah, yeah, from
That's throughout the
worldwide
world,
from
right?
international.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
around because I remember last year they were saying the UK it was going to be 9,000 and it ended up being
yes,
14,000 that
yeah,
left,
yeah,
which is quite an increase as a percentage when you look at it. But yeah, I mean, look, we're really figure orientated. We like to read government reports. We like to look at the data. And only last week, me and my business partner were sat there looking at the data for Dubai, and we could quite clearly see that the demand for people moving out here is going to outstrip the amount of property that's coming by 2030, 2035. And people always say to me, James, like, look, oh, there's so many blocks going up. But the simple maths
The
is
demand.
that there's
Yeah.
not actually enough blocks. You know, you look at the
For the
population. I
demand.
look at it all the time, every few months, and the population's just ding, ding, ding. It's gone up another 100,000. It's gone up another 50,000. You're thinking, Jesus, this is going to break 4 million before we know it. When I started looking at it, it was
Yeah.
somewhere around 3. Now it's almost
Yeah.
close
Yeah.
to 4, and God knows where it's going to head. So developers
Well,
are obviously they're having a God.
yeah, I was going to say, and Amara and that are quite being, and to buy land and that they are being quite strategic on when they're releasing stuff. People don't really think that, like you said, they think they're just think, but they are very strategic. They've already got approvals for a whole bloody city, well, not city, but a whole towns of stuff that can be built and released, but they're not releasing it. One keeps the supply and demand going for the developers and the brokers, but also they are being strategic. So I think, yeah, you're right. There's the supply and demand in certain areas is definitely being outweighed. I think where investors have gone wrong in Dubai is not really finding a broker that actually knows what they're talking about or done their own due diligence properly. They're the
Yeah,
people that have gone wrong in Dubai. And that's laziness, really. That's just being a lazy investor. Um,
yeah,
because they're the ones who have come unstuck. But what you do find in Dubai, as you probably found, I'm going to call them unprofessional investors. These are people who just got a shit ton of money, don't know property or real estate whatsoever, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, just buy me some of
yeah,
them." It's like, well, yeah, but that's not what you want. Yeah, yeah, just get it. It's like District One. How many people in District One just own a property that sits there empty? They don't want it rented. They just bought it
mm,
and put 15 mil AED, 25 mil AED, whatever it is, into these villas, and they're just sitting there on a lovely little estate, as we call it in England, just sitting there. I think it's just an amazing thing. I love it. I find it really exciting, but it's a completely different market.
yeah. I have seen that. I know what you mean. I mean, I looked down at some of the bigger lots down in Dubai Hills as well, and some of that shell and core stuff. It's just been sitting there ever since the shell's been built. Nobody's actually done anything with it. It's just like
Mm.
I can afford to leave 20 million just sitting there, you know. And like you say, in District 1, I've been down there, and it's quite easy to see the ones that are just packed up because they're a little bit dusty. You know, no one's ever
Yeah,
opened the doors. They look a little bit grim, but again, you know, prime bit of real estate just left there. And I do think you're right. There are people that have got money that will just take a punt on stuff, but I still think those guys need to be pointed in the right direction, you know, because
yeah, yeah. I
I
do as
say,
well, but
I,
they don't. They're just like,
I say it all the time, you know, because agents out here are commission only. You know, they're going to try and sell you whatever the hell they want to that's going to get them the highest payday. And I think
hmm
that's what separates us really from other brokerages is that we do have a substantial portfolio that pays us every single month. So we're not pressed or pushed to sell you something just for the sake of selling you something. And I get it time
yeah,
and time again when I've had meetings with clients or groups of clients. They're like, James, why do I not get any pressure from you to buy something? It's because I don't need to. You know, it's marginally going to change my life if you do buy something. But if I sell you something or I don't, I'm actually still going to be in the same place I was, you know, quite
yep,
comfortable. So I think when you're in a position like that, it really allows you to offer such a high level of service to a client where they think, hold on a second, this guy really has got my best interest because I've been to see 10 other brokers and every single one of us told me that that the property is going to sell out. You need to book it now. They won't be there if you come back in the morning, all that nonsense. And you're here just saying, all right, you know what, let's have a coffee. When you're ready, come back to me.
mm. Yeah, there is, and that's
So
what I mean. But I
I
think
think that really kind of,
the bit of the problem with the commission only, this is another issue with the Dubai market, is there's good points about brokerages. You have to do your qualifications to be able to do it, blah blah blah, which is better than England. You could just be a window cleaner for 20 years and want to be an estate agent. As long as you can sell, an estate agent's going to hire you. But
yeah,
so it's good in that way. The commission only thing is I completely get why brokerages have done that historically there. I do see it as a big issue though, because what you've got is so many rubbish brokers, like
Mm.
really rubbish. They just don't know what they're doing. There might be an ex-plumbers, ex whatever in England, or wherever, and they don't know what they're doing. They're qualified, but they've never done sales before, and or
Mm.
investments before. They might have never invested in property before. So then suddenly they've got brokers that you said are trying to just because they're commission only, they're just pushing, 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 and the quality then ties everyone with the same brush. And I've seen that, with certain investors I've worked with in Dubai and owners in Dubai that I've worked with, and uh, yeah, I find that's frustrating. That's my biggest frustration. That is actually probably my only and biggest frustration with the Dubai real estate market is brokers. And
Mm.
it's not the brokers fault themselves because they want a job. So, you know, they want a job and they're working hard to make that work. But that commission only route does create bad eggs. Um, and and yeah, there's a couple of firms I know, not many, that went down the salary type route. Not
Yep.
many,
Yep.
like there's a couple of smaller ones, and they done really well because what they got is someone who wasn't chasing their tail. Like what you said, you've got your retained income anyway. So
Mm.
they got a good team, not a big team. I think there's 8 or 9 of them, and where they had partial salary, it wasn't a big salary, but enough to like cover their living costs. Um, they had such good quality because these guys were doing big deals, really big deals. Might have taken them 4 or 5 months, but they're super big deals. And it's just
Yeah.
because they were focused on the right stuff rather than like, hey, yeah, this is going to sell out tomorrow. I've nearly named a developer then, but this is going to sell out tomorrow. Ain't going to bloody sell out tomorrow. Ain't going to
Yeah.
sell out
Yeah.
tomorrow. Like you said, give proper advice. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? Let's find that right. Because Dubai, people think it's huge, but it's not. It's actually quite small, really. And
Mm.
you buy in here, it could be a completely different investment case to there.
Yeah.
And that's why. But I find it. I love it. Bar the brokers, I get frustrated with brokers. They don't like working with each other, and that baffles me because everything else in Dubai is about working together. Whereas you get into the real estate brokers, and you got a buyer that only wants to deal with you because they trust you,
Mm.
and then you've got the perfect thing for them here. You phone up that agent, that broker, and they're like, "No, we don't work with agents."
Yeah.
You've
It's
got a
nonsense,
bloody
right?
person that wants to buy it. Just sell the bloody thing. Are you doing the right thing for your customer? Absolutely not. Your job is to sell that piece of property. And
Yeah.
instead,
Yeah.
because they're not going to get the full fees, they will not do it. They just will not
Mm.
entertain. And that is one of my biggest things with the Dubai world is brokers.
I'll give you an example. Me and my wife, we just bought our own home back end of last year. Actually, New Year's Eve, we bought it in 2024. And it was the same thing. I had to get my wife to contact these brokers because I thought
Yeah,
if I start sending messages from my own number, in fact, I was messaging from my UK number because I knew the minute they see I'm a broker, the conversation's going to go dead because they think I'm up to something.
yep.
And this went on for months. And you're talking about somebody who's in the game. It took
Just
us
want to
so
buy a property.
long. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly that.
I had
And
that when I
then
wanted
in
to rent.
the
I had that as well.
when you wanted to, yeah, the minute they see you're a broker, it's kind of like, okay, I don't really want to work with this person. So I think, yeah, stuff like that really needs to change. And I think, look, I think the frustrations that I hear from you are the same frustrations that I've got. People don't really look at it as a serious career, and it is a career. Investing is something that can make you, a shit ton of money if you do it rightly, and
Yeah.
if you're advising your clients correctly. Yeah, you can. But I think it's this whole hype where people jump onto Instagram and then they see these videos of these brokers just saying, I did this, I did this, I did that. And it's very easy to check that you actually didn't do that because I can just go and have a look at your RERA number and see that you've sold nothing for
Oh
the
yeah, it's
last
quite
12
easy in
months.
Dubai. It's
You
quite
know, you
easy
know,
in Dubai.
it's so transparent. And I say that to buyers. I say, look, if this guy's telling you he sold 400 units in this block, go and have a look at his RERA number and you'll be able to see if he sold those. And suddenly that broker's kind of like, oh, okay, I didn't know I could get caught on that point. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
hype, there's a lot of bullshit. You just got to be able to kind of separate all of that and work with the right type of people.
That's what I mean. I love the market out there. It's vibrant. It's different. It's new. It's growing. But brokers. One of my least favourite things.
So look, Charlie, as we wrap it up, mate, we're at 50 minutes and it just feels like we've been talking to 10. This is what I mean. Every
Oh
time I do
well.
a podcast and I hit off with somebody who's in property, it always goes so quick. So look, mate, I want to ask you, what does the future entail for you? Because obviously, with the brief introduction that you've given, I will put your details in the show notes so people can go and check out your website and actually find out exactly what you're doing in depth. But what does the future hold for yourself, mate? What's the plans? Where are you going? What are you doing?
So obviously, I don't think, as we've established on this, property's ever going to leave me. I love helping.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, you and I become successful through property at whatever point in life. So for me, there's enough out there for all of us. So I love investing with people because I give them the returns because I done everything with my own money originally. Everything I did was with
Mhm.
my own money. Then I realised, well, wait a minute, I can win for both parties here. So I love investing with or for people. Obviously, I will continue buying because I can't help it. Someone will say, "Hey, Charge, you want this for this?" Like, okay, I'll have it. Yeah, I can't help it. Um, Business acquisitions is a huge thing I'm into right now. Like really being quite aggressive with it. Um,
What kind of
again,
businesses are you buying?
professional services. So that's quite vague, but that can be quite vague. Places I spend my money. I don't know. I'd love to get a couple of nurseries under my belt
Mhm.
because nurseries take a lot of money from us. um, and then obviously property related companies are easy for me because they just drop in bolt onto my company here. So
Sure.
so property companies obviously, and then yeah, professional services, but that can be quite vague. So that's my main drive. Obviously, I love helping people, like mentoring people, but I can't really do more than 12 people a year, so it's very rarely I can work with new people on the mentoring space. I do have actually two spaces becoming available, but generally speaking, I love that because it's that giving back. It's not my big income, but I love it. One of the guys I finished work, well, I still work with him now because we end up having a company together as well. I mentored him, and what I got him to achieve in 4 months took me 10 years.
Wow.
And I might sound cheesy, but I actually love it. I already make money, so I don't need to be jealous of what he's achieved in 4 months compared to my 10 years. But I knew if
Of
I
course.
didn't give him that information and I didn't help him do that, he would never have done it. So that's one of my favourite things I do, really. And then the last thing, maybe I can get to Dubai somewhere. That's definitely on the agenda. Like I said, I sort of moved there last year, but then had to come back because I just missed my son far too much.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that, mate. I get that. Yeah. Well, listen, if you do ever come out here, or when you come out here, let me rephrase that. We'll definitely have to sit together and kind of do
Yeah.
some more bashing on the real estate market. But on that
I'm
note,
out
mate, it's
there in
been a
March, so
what? Oh, are you okay? Well, then
I'm
definitely
out
let's
there.
get together.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll get together and we'll do something in one of the studios, and we'll talk more about what's going on in real estate. But mate, it's
yeah,
been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And obviously, I want people to go out and check your profile. That's why I didn't want to give too much away on this podcast. And I just wanted a brief intro into what you do, so people are forced to go and look at your profile and see
yeah.
what you're all about. But yeah, you've achieved
See
some
what I get
amazing
up to.
stuff, mate. And you should be impressed with it, mate. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And no doubt we'll talk again.
Perfect. Thank you.